In this video, I'll be sharing my top 5 tips on how to save more money. Using these strategies, you'll not only be able to boost your savings, but also increase your efficiency with the money that you have. Money can feel like it disappears at times, leaving you scratching your head, wondering where it all went, and making the task of actually saving any of it seem like a constant uphill battle that's never ending. Having some straightforward rules in place is an excellent way to keep track of your money and boost your efficiency with the money that you hold on to, and actually feel like you're getting somewhere with your finances, as opposed to it just seeming like your paycheck vanishes every week. I'll be showing you some of the strategies that I've personally used over the years, some of which quite literally have been life-changing. I've used these to boost my savings, improve my spending habits, and increase my efficiency with the money that I hold on to. I've definitely made a lot of my own financial mistakes over the years, and I think they're relatable to a lot of people. I'll be sharing these, what I've learned from them, and the best ways to avoid them. No matter how much or how little money you make, these tips are relevant for everyone who wants to improve their finances, and it's the video that I wish I saw years ago, and if I did, I'd be in a far greater financial position than what I am now. The first principle comes from a great financial book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'd recommend anyone to read this book who wants to improve their finances. I'll leave a link down below in the description for anyone who's interested. But one of the main principles from this book is understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. Essentially, an asset is anything that generates you money, and a liability is anything that takes money away from you. An example of an asset is, say, an investment in the stock market, or real estate, or royalties from a song or book that you've made, and a liability might be a new car, a boat, a more expensive house that you've had to take a mortgage on, anything like that. The majority of things that people buy will fall most likely into that liability category. And the biggest thing is that people don't understand the difference between the two. They might buy a new boat or a new car and see that as an asset, but in reality, you're losing money on it. With that new car, you have to maintain it, pay insurance, put gas in it, and automatically after you buy it and drive it away from the dealership, it's lost its value. If you buy a car at $10,000, you're definitely not going to be able to sell it at that same amount, let alone for more and make a profit. So automatically you've lost money after you buy it. Buying new things like phones, jewelry, and clothing can feel good at the time, but it's just a momentary satisfaction that doesn't really last long. It's just an in the moment feeling of gratification when you buy it, but over time you don't really care about that new pair of shoes, or that phone breaks or gets a crack in the screen and you just buy a new one. It can often be far more appealing just to buy liabilities because they give you that instant feeling of gratification. As an example, if you had to pick between buying a brand new pair of Nike running shoes for $300 or buying, say, a share of Tesla back in 2020, if you buy the shoes, they look cool at the time, they're nice to have, you might get compliments from your friends and feel good on the inside, versus if you own that stock, nothing really happens. You just have a share in a company, there's no tangible or physical thing that you can do with it, but over time that pair of running shoes depreciates its value. They're definitely not worth $300 anymore. They're worn out, they're old, you don't really care about them the same way you did when you first bought them. That momentary feeling of gratification is worn off. They're not really that special anymore. They're just another pair of shoes, and you've lost money on them because you can't sell them for what they're worth, let alone try and sell them for more and get a profit. But with that share in that stock, that will have gone up exponentially, and that initial $300 investment will have gone up, but you don't have anything physical from it. But what you do have is an asset that makes you money. It can seem more challenging to understand the benefits of assets, having to actually go through the learning curve of understanding the stock market and how investments work, or how the property market works, or having the commitment to writing a book and having that published and sold seems far more challenging. But in reality, it's well worth the learning curve, and it's far more straightforward than you might think. You don't have to have 2 computer monitors and stay up all day and all night looking at the stock market. Things are far more straightforward, but going through the time to actually learn how it works can seem challenging, but just getting started is by far the hardest part. For whatever reason, people will view things like a new car, boat, or bigger house as an asset. They'll ignore all the financial stress that it can place on them and all the money that it can eat up. And overall, one of the main things that occupies their mind when it comes to their money is just buying more and more liabilities. Whatever money they save, they just think of a new liability to buy with it. Once I have X amount of money, I'll get a new phone or a new laptop, or I'll upgrade my car. And they won't think of more productive ways to use their money. The thought of, say, buying a share of Tesla back when it was $300 is something that wouldn't even cross someone's mind, let alone saving enough for a rental property or anything of this nature. Number 2 is having a plan with your money, having a goal of what you want to do with it. And this will vary greatly from person to person. Some people might just want enough for a vacation, others might want to learn the stock market and become a millionaire, others are after just the safety net to have there if something goes wrong. The goal is not super important initially, it just has to be something relevant for you that you care about, because the problem you can run into if you don't have a goal for your money is that once you pay for your expenses, all the money after that, it just looks like spending money. You can do whatever you want with it because you've paid for your rent, your food, these kinds of necessities, but once you've done that, you can just theoretically spend the rest of your money if there's no goal or reason for you to hold on to it. People often have a threshold of where they are comfortable with in terms of their savings. It might be a few $100s or $1,000, then they feel okay. And for some, they might not even care about having any savings whatsoever, just having a few cents in their bank account. But once they reach that threshold of their savings, they don't really care about what happens to their money. And then once that amount of savings is, say, spent, most likely on a liability as well, then they have that urge to start saving again. They meet that comfortable threshold of where they're happy, and then they just spend it again until it runs out. Just a constant cycle of not really getting anywhere, not improving your finances or feel like you're making any progress with your money. This again was something that I personally did and I can relate to. Over one of the summers that I had at uni, I worked as a laborer, doing 50 to 60 hours a week and getting roughly $800 for this. And I did this for 3 months. So in total, I made $9,600. And at the end of it, I had saved just $1,000. And I was extremely frustrated by this, looking at all the money I'd spent, because it definitely didn't cost me $9,600 to live for 3 months. But because I wasn't keeping track of it and I had no goal of what I wanted to do with my money, I just had that threshold of $1,000, and then anything over that I just viewed as expendable. So it wasn't until I had an actual goal of what I wanted to do with my money that I found myself actually holding on to it and having a reason to keep it. And the goal that you have needs to be something tangible. Just saying saving for a house is a bit too vague. You want to have actual figures involved in it, because that seems like a mammoth task and that could be a never-ending commitment. So you want something that actually will keep you motivated and something tangible that you can do. That might be, say, saving $50,000 for a deposit on a house, something with a bit more basis and a bit more planning and some steps in place for it to become a reality. Or you might say making $100 a month in dividends from investing in the stock market, things of that nature, where you can start planning on how to actually get there and making it seem like a more achievable goal as opposed to just something vague. Number 3 is reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, this is an outstanding piece of reading material that I would yet again recommend for everyone. It's one of the best financial books that I personally read, and the principles in here have really been life-changing for me. It's opened my eyes up to other avenues of making money as opposed to just working at a regular job. Things like investing in the stock market and property, building a business, not just limiting yourself to trading your hours at the job that you have. It shows you how rewarding pursuing these other avenues can be and how effective it can be at overall improving the quality of your own life. Learning how to use your money to make more money as opposed to just spending it on material things. Number 4 is having an allocation of where your money goes. Whenever I get my weekly paycheck, what I do is divide it into certain areas. So I do this in percentages. I'll put half of my paycheck into buying necessities like paying for rent, groceries, gas for my car. The other 30% I put into investing. This is currently in the stock market. And then 10% I'll have for spending, buying coffees, any material things for myself, things of this nature. And the other 10% is savings. So for anything long term, if I want to buy a new laptop or a phone, or just some money to have set aside if things go wrong, I need to repair my car, anything like that, that's where that other 10% goes. And you can do this for yourself, but you need to be practical in terms of how you set out these percentages. You can't just say try and save 60% of your income and then neglect your expenses and not have any form of savings whatsoever. Or something that I personally did is have far too much of my money invested, say trying to invest 40% of my income and then not having money for other relevant things like my groceries as well. Playing around with these figures and being practical with how you distribute your money, and just building some motivation and getting started. And the figures that I use might not be relevant for you. If you've just started investing, putting 30% of your income is not going to be practical for you. So just start with something that you're comfortable with. It might only be 5 or 10%, but just having an allocation that you can stick with is a great way to get started, and it keeps your money separate. You don't feel guilty about just spending 10% of your paycheck, and it keeps you reasonable. It stops you from falling into that trap of viewing your excess money that isn't used on expenses as something that you can just spend and throw away. So this is a great strategy that I've used to be a bit more strict on how my money is used, but lets me do all the things I need to. I can buy my necessities, I can spend money to hang out with my friends, I can pursue my investing, and it just keeps everything nice and balanced. Number 5 is learning to invest. Now this is by far the greatest principle that I can offer you, and before I started investing, I just thought to myself I was going to work as many hours as I could at my job, save every penny that I could, and that's how I was going to get to where I wanted to be financially. But after investing, I can see that there's far more effective avenues to spend your time. Investing in the stock market, in real estate, in cryptocurrencies, all these kinds of things are a great place to put your money and have it work for you, because there's only so many hours you can spend at work. You can only progress so quickly in your career, and having more avenues to improve your finances is always good. It's far better to get money from stock market investment, rent from real estate, and your job, as opposed to just committing to your career. It also makes you far more aware of where your money goes, because it can feel good, of course, to make 10% from an investment, but if you only have $100 invested and you make $10, I mean, that's fine, but you'll feel far better if you say made 10% on $1,000 or $10,000. And investing in the stock market can be a bit of a learning curve, but it's definitely worth it. And overall, it's not that risky depending on the type of companies you choose to put your money into and the amount of research that you do on them. Putting your money into, say, the whole stock market by investing in the S&P 500, which is essentially just the top 500 companies in America, your investment will be spread out amongst well-rounded, well-branded companies like Coca-Cola, Facebook, Tesla. You might have 2% in Google, 2% in Apple, 5% in McDonald's, and because your money is spread out amongst all these companies, then your investment is theoretically far safer. And you can spend the time to learn about individual stocks, but just starting with a nice safe index fund is a great place to begin your investing journey. And of course it feels good to buy material things, but you'll be far more motivated to do more productive things with your money, because it can feel great for a while to have a new phone or a new pair of shoes, but let me tell you, getting a return in the stock market that's in the thousands or tens of thousands is a far better feeling than having a new pair of shoes or a new phone. Now that you're more familiar with how to save your money, you might be wondering on how you can be more effective with your money through investing. The video on screen will give you a complete step-by-step guide on how to start investing, some of the key mistakes to avoid, and how you can make your time in the stock market as profitable as possible.